Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing another video today in this series called Albums That Changed My Life. And today we're going to be tackling Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, which is Emperor's second full-length album. Came out in, I believe it was summer of 1997. And that was when I was going through a full-fledged metal renaissance in my life for various reasons. And I'll get to some of those reasons in this video, of course. I've talked about it before a little bit. So basically, as people know, I kind of got out of the metal thing for a while, at least in a very involved way. After just a lot of crap in the '90s, I went to several raves. I started to wear like Jinkos, and I started, wearing like just like Star Wars. It was before Star Wars got like where it is now, like one of those like old school '70s looking white shirts with the print, the smaller, and they had the blue, whatever, sleeves. Had one of those, and I tried to do dreadlocks, believe it or not, for a couple of weeks. It didn't work, but it was an interesting time for me. So that was kind of like where I was coming from. I was listening a lot of like I was listening to Aphex Twin, Skinny Puppy, Stitches of Mercy, Joy Division, bands like that. Musicians like that. And I still love all those musicians, by the way. In fact, I probably appreciate them more now than I did back then because it was like I had to have this delineation between metal and non-metal and go through this whole thing. And going back to that, it's kind of like, well, I loved that stuff anyway, so it wasn't just because I was trying to be trendy. So I had to clear myself of all that stuff in a certain way to get back to the metal. And then I was like going back and visiting it. It's like, well, I liked it anyways. It wasn't because I was trendy. So this album came out. I was already in the midst of my metal renaissance. I was starting to buy Merciful Fate and King Diamond albums in the fall of '96, and that was really the first steps towards getting into like metal and not being scared of the word Satan in metal, satanic metal bands and stuff. And I was like, well, the King Diamond guy seems pretty intelligent. I mean, I'm not. I guess I won't get possessed and kill people if I listen to Merciful Fate. I threw away a Merciful Fate CD 2 years before that, or maybe it was 2 or 3 years before that. Even though I loved it, it was Melissa, by the way. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome stuff. I love it. It's just I can't stop listening to it. I got obsessed. I got really into it, and started buying other albums and stuff. But my friend was starting to get into Mortician of all bands because he bought House by the Cemetery. I think was out by then, or one of those albums, or maybe it was the EP. I don't know which EP it was, but one of those albums. And he also liked Mortice, and he was listening a lot. He was an industrial goth kind of guy, and he told me Mortice was from this band Emperor, and I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And there's this place called the Razor Room that used to sell industrial and goth and techno punk stuff. And it started to carry a little bit of metal, which was interesting, but it was the shift was starting to happen. So this album, the first 3 CDs that I bought from this new metal renaissance, other than Merciful Fate King Diamond, which I get at the used CD stores, 2 of them, or maybe there was 2 or 3 of them that I bought at the Razor Room, which was Tales from the Thousand Lakes Amorphous, Anathema's Eternity, and the Reverence EP, which is basically a single that's called from this album with a couple extra tracks, which are really good tracks, by the way. I don't know why I guess the vinyl didn't include those extra tracks, but it has Lost and Curse of Reverence, So I bought that and I'm like blown away by it. I was like, what is this? It's like classical music with like extreme metal. Because, before that I wasn't really knowledgeable about death metal or black metal. And, I'd liked a couple death metal bands. Or grindcore bands, specifically like Carcass and Napalm Death, but I was scared of the satanic stuff, even though I was a hypocrite, because I'd go to these shows by this band at this youth club back in the '90s called Lysergic, who did covers of Napalm, or covers of Deicide and Morbid Angel, and went with one of my best friends at the time. Every time they played, I'm like, yeah, I'll go. but I never bought any. Maybe I was like kind of trying to separate myself from it. Like, I'm not going to buy any. I'm not going to have it in my house because it's satanic. I might go murder people like Richard Ramirez or something because I'll get possessed by the devil or something by listening to it, but I like it. Or some kind of crap like that. So it's pretty ludicrous, but nevertheless, I had like this live Morbid Angel that he gave, that I did dub. I was like, you know, I liked it. But that was the only one in it. It was even before, I think it was even before I got into Slayer. No, I was into Slayer too. I did get into Slayer, but I threw away some Slayer too because I was like walking home from school one day and I was listening to Kill Again, was it Kill Again or Praise of Death? Like I thought I was going to jump off the building because of it. I was like, oh, I hope it doesn't influence me to do that, you know? Like I was just so like afraid, and I think it was like OCD and mental illness and just having a hard time as an adolescent rather than Slayer lyrics. It was just, you know. So anyways, I got back into Slayer, to say the least, but this album came out. I couldn't stop listening to it. I think it was that summer was really that album. This was before I super got into power metal, you know, but like because I think it was that fall that I got into. Was it that fall that I got Keyboard of the Seven Keys Part 2 was kind of the bridge to Blind Guardian and all those other bands, because like my brother had the tape growing up and I was like, this is really good, you know. And I heard it again. Yeah, I bought it, and I was like, I bought it. And I can't remember if I bought that before Blind Guardian or after. It was probably after. But then I bought Walls of Jericho, you know, all those albums. But this is like what got me into black metal. I didn't touch Mayhem for years because I was like, oh, that sounds stupid. I killed, you know. And then, scarily for me enough, and just sort of embarrassingly enough, in 2009, I became unemployed. I was on unemployment, but I started playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the first time. And I had Mayhem downloaded by then. The Mystery of Dom Satana, and I started listening to him like, oh my god, this is so good. And it fit with and I recommend that. It's like Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Wizard of Oz, like playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night and listening to Mayhem over and over again. And it was awesome. And that really got me into Mayhem the first time ever. I thought they were overrated, and I was still kind of had that little conditioning in me, even though I was listening to Emperor, also burned churches and killed people, at least a few of their members, former members or whatever. So, but it's classical music. It's like influenced by romanticism, like in the lyrics. Oh my God, you know. Well, yeah. So what, you know? So I really got into it, and it just like it opened up pathways for me. You know, and I offended people, including relatives, by buying the Satanic Bible and saying it was a lot. Agreed with a lot of it, and you know, King Diamond agrees with a lot of it. Of course, I like it, you know, and all these different things. You know, I got into. I wasn't. I don't think even at that point I ever would have considered myself a Satanist, and I do not for the most part now, other than maybe sometimes I could call myself a romantic era Satanist, like in a certain way that I do believe in those philosophies that were kind of developed during that time in some ways. So that was kind of what led me down those paths, you know, and the black metal and a lot of other stuff, you know, at the time. That was one of the first albums, though. And I count that as kind of the ushering in of the new era of metal for me, pretty much. It's the Reverence EP particularly, but this album was kind of the main album that's from, of course, and that just got me really into, you know, what was happening then, because I was I was into the past at that point, and the production wasn't really that bad by then. You know, the quantized digital crap sounding production that we have now. So that's kind of how I see it now. But yeah, Anthems to the Welkin and Dusk did change my life, and I love it, and I love the music, the synthesizer, you know, the symphonic elements, the vocals. Some of my favorite in black metal. I think my favorite was probably Korthon and Asan. else did I say one time? It's my favorite. Oh, Garm. Yeah, those are my three favorite black metal vocalists, by the way. So Garm from Oliver and Borkengar and Arcturus and many other projects. But yeah, I mean this cover is awesome. You see how cool they look on there, and it's pretty crazy stuff. And I'm glad I have it on vinyl. Like this is a Spine Farm Candlelight edition. Emperor plays sophisticated black metal art exclusively. So pretentious. But I want to see what we have on the inside. Oh, we have like a little interview in there. I didn't even see that. I never opened. Well, I might have opened this up once. It has this like huge interview. I read all the interview, like a lot of the interviews at the time. I remember specifically there was a Samoth interview that was hilarious because people were surprised and shocked that I said I wanted kids one day, and he's like, because people thought we sat in a cave in Norway and ate babies or whatever. It was just hilarious because like people had this thing in their head about these black metal artists, back in the day. They were already beyond that. He had got out of prison for burning the church and stuff. Samoth was right. Yeah, that's him. He had been in prison. He wrote different some of the lyrics on the album and stuff, and or just and had, I don't know, I think they had moved beyond a lot of that stuff. They just wanted to be musicians at that point, pretty much. Even though he was, some of the consequences of his actions, obviously, he did go to jail. That was the only, and then Faust, who's not on this album, was in prison until like the early 2000s, I believe, for killing someone, former drummer. It's it's crazy stuff, but I mean, what's the difference between that and like rap artists in America back in the day? It's like, oh, this guy was in prison for murder, he was a drug dealer or whatever. So what? Support the art, not the artist, right? So I mean, at least they're not creeps like Diddy or something in these bands, But yeah, I mean, it's classic metal at this point, I mean, and it really did change my life, It really did. Like a lot of, and I think it represented a period of time. I could say, oh, Morpheus, Tales from the Thousand Lakes, or Anathema's Eternity, but it's really that Emperor that really was like the key band to like totally spark things in my head more, even though I love those other albums that are influential on me too. But like it represent, like I do this series because it's something that represents a certain point in my life more because it was a big shift. That's kind of why I do these videos, and I don't mention all the other bands that I like, which are a multitude of bands, that I like. But, I mean, why would I get into Celtic Frost because of Emperor, They even have an album, Emperor's Return, Name themselves Emperor, by the way, I believe. And, why would I get into that stuff? Because of Emperor, Even if I listen to some of that other stuff like Bathory, I listen to more than Emperor nowadays. This is the key album for me. And I don't like it as much now. I think I like the EP better than everything else. I don't know why. It was the 4-song EP. And the other EP, like with Ancient Queen and, songs like that. And the other 3-song EP, which is on that True Kings of Norway compilation, which I recommend too. That's pretty cool. And yeah, that's what I got into. And I was like, oh, Satanism's not so bad. I'm not going to get possessed and go kill people or whatever, because I never did. I mean, if anything, I probably am more possessed by the devil now. I've been listening to his music for 25 years. I should be foaming at the mouth. Anyways, that's about all.